Good afternoon. This is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncovering and More, which it's bringing me joy to be able to say that because I've been through enough resurrection of my soul life situations that it's good to be sitting here about to go home to my lovely family and actually knowing that I'm not hurting as much anymore metaphysically, though I know that the problems that we face in the world, the problems that we face in small A America are great, but we must pace ourselves, and I'm doing that. And if many of us, particularly in Gen X, are an example of pacing ourselves, I believe we will come out of this difficulty more unified than we could ever imagine, perhaps. On the other hand, I may not see it until this life span is over, and I need to have times of joy, and I need to have times when I am mourning for what is happening day by day. And so that is what this YouTube is about. It is going on my poetry YouTube, the one that I actually pay for. It is about T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, Part 5. The Thunder Speaks, I think. Thunder Speaks. It's about thunder. Sorry, Mr. Eliot and family, if I don't get it exactly correct. There's going to be a reading of it is part 2 of this blog article. There's going to be 2 parts on my YouTube because I want to explain myself and how beautiful this is first, and then the second video is going to be reading the actual poem, so the title will be correct and everything. I need to look up some vocabulary, but I'm going to say right here, first off, thank you, my son Patrick, and I thank him on text all the time because we're reading poetry together. We don't have time to get together and actually discuss it very often, but we're looking forward to being able to do that in the future. And that's the kind of, he heard me. I am not crying anymore. He heard me. And he's not the only, all of my children heard me, and they're coming back showing me, we heard you, Mom. And the thing is that my therapist told me that, and I had confirmation from another woman at a coffee shop. I hope I get to see her again. I don't know. But she and I were talking, and we both are first-time grandmothers. And, so we had some things to share with each other, and she was confirming some things that my therapist has said to me. And one thing that my therapist said was, in all my pain, continue to be faithful. Continue. And it goes without saying, I didn't need a therapist to tell me this, but I try to appreciate the faithfulness of the people around me. We all make mistakes. We all blame each other at times. It doesn't matter where we are. I'm not just talking about a biological family. We blame each other sometimes for things that we're not handling our part in. And then sometimes we own it because we feel safe enough to own it. And that's the point I want to remind psychiatry. Until individuals feel safe, have a safe place on a consistent basis, your job is impossible. Because if you think about it, I don't know what the percentage of homes are that children are being touched by adults inappropriately, sexually. They don't know what a safe space is. They don't know what a safe space is. And so we have that in our society. I would wager that's in every society that's larger. And so I think Gen X, we are of an age that we still have a lot of pep in our step. We can be a source of hope against all odds. And we can see and be a part of making safe spaces. And that's what I want to share today as I read T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland Part 5. The Thunder Speaks. Something like that. I want to share my personal experience with it first. I had a time at a place that I go to a lot. I want to thank the man named Eric at Monkey's Nest today. I walked in and I could tell that his leadership is still there, even though I haven't seen him in a while there. But we got to meet with each other. Nice man. Very nice man. His picture is up again with his dear Monkey's Nest co-employee. And I get to hug her occasionally. She loves on me, I love on her, and she's just the best. And that they had taken the picture down, and it's back up. He's a painter, and I think he painted the cow that's beside it today. Great cow going on there. And I want to thank him because I have a feeling he still has a hand in the situations that go on at Monkey's Nest. And there was just a clean atmosphere today. That is a very spiritually charged place. And it blesses me that, like their conference room, they have people going in for just pleasant conversations and things like that. And they have times that they can take to do that in that place. And so they are a force of positive change in Austin, Texas. Well, Cara, Austin doesn't need to change. Every single large city in Texas needs to change until women fully are autonomous in their decision making of their health, until we have universal health care. However the market system of healthcare works, I don't know, but it needs to be universal. Birth control and abortion, if it is necessary, need to be available 100% of the time. Birth control for men and women, the ability to get your tubes tied or vasectomy, if that is your choice, needs to be given. And gun reform now in Texas is a must. And then I'm going to loop back to safe spaces. I see people meeting in safe spaces now, a lot. And I'm privileged to be somebody who could pull a safe space as a sorceress. And I just did. But the first place I went was Monkey's Nest. So I am saying thank you to someone that is leadership at that place, but I haven't seen him in a while. He's my friend. And here's the point. I got up to break my fast. I was going to buy something else. I had just had a coffee, and then I decided to want to go ahead and have a little breakfast there. And so, but I looked at the menu, and then I took a small walk, which helped my back before I ate. And I talked to the trees, and the trees talked back to me. And this is the second time I'm honored to say that I wrote a poem before I went to my second place of enjoyment in that area, coffee shop, I was able to, I talked to the trees, and the trees talked to me, which is just, I put my hands on them and I look up and I meditate. And I let my mind be free for that space of time of the worries that I carry on all kinds of levels, just like you do. So I let them go, and I talk to the trees. Well, I've actually, at another coffee shop that I've been to here and there, talked to the trees there, and I actually wrote a poem through the tree and I communing together. And that's a mystery thing. My dad had the ability, but in the Christian world, you're not allowed to admit those abilities. My dad wouldn't cut trees down because it put him in pain. My dad was a true pagan, but he never admitted it because, again, that was considered demonic. And my dad was an exorcist. I will take you back to my initial testimony. He was the only one that could exorcise the demon of insanity that was point blank talking through me, and he saw the demon. It was huge. But my dad was the only one that could exorcise anything off of me, and believe me, people thought I was like, I had problems, because Christians make all of us to look like we're mentally incompetent. Because there's too much stuff that they consider demonic when it's not. Certainly, all kinds of genre of witchcraft have to be purified. I'm not saying that they don't need to be purified. I am saying that it is none of Christianity's business to call other things wicked, because I don't even believe in demonic possession anymore. Not the Christian way. I live in the world where a demon of insanity talking through my voice, seeing them, we just help each other handle that stuff. We don't consider one another mentally unstable in my world. Okay? So, demon possession doesn't exist. And the thing is that Christianity has too many exorcists that are bullshitters. Very judgmental people that think they know who's going to hell and who isn't. They're going to hell if they're doing that to you. It is very clear in the gospel record of the King of Kings. He's very clear. You don't do that. Your own judgment will come of somebody else will come up upon you. Now, I have this to say. If you're not really an exorcist and you're pretending to be, that's a whole nother level of wickedness. And I ain't that, because I'm real. So I know what I'm talking about, and if you want to question me, go ahead. I don't give a fuck. It's your karma you're messing with, not mine. Okay, so let me go back to the nice side of this. So I talked to the trees at one place and then went to a second one and had a cold latte because it is hot today. I was actually able to just still continue to exercise because I'm in quite a little bit of I'm in quite a little bit of physical pain. And I can't really trace it except for that the heat, and I'm in some allergies right now. The heat with seasonal allergies is bringing my ability to take care of pain naturally. It's bringing it down. So I apply Tiger Balm to some pain points, and then it all loosens up, and I'm not in pain. That's what I do. I do that at home. I do that quietly as I'm reading poetry or whatever, enjoying my moment with myself. So it's just something natural that I have learned to do. So I just want to encourage you, you can do this on the go. I have tons of times that I don't. I have tons of times that I have failed my daily routines for meditation and all of that because I was fucked over by Christian religion for far too many years. It's still, I can't commit to much anymore. I if I hear the word commitment, I talked about on one video that I used the word submission with one of my daughters. She turned on me and she's like, I hate that word. You know, and I was like, I know, I'm right there with you. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used that word. I tripped her. I've been tripped by my kids because we're using old rhetoric that just brings back the bad memories. I had to apologize to a child yesterday. And this child's almost an adult because I had an outburst. And was it their fault? Was it my fault? It's not about fault. It's about us getting back up again after we've been through a lot, and that's millions of people in this country. COVID was very hard on us as a population. I am proud of us as a population where COVID is concerned. But in one of my other YouTubes just yesterday, I said there is an epidemic of mental quote-unquote illness that's not really illness. It's torture upon our mental facilities when you've actually got criminals still stealing a shit ton of airtime like we've got right now and calling it freedom of speech, which is bullshit. Yeah, there's mental pressure on us, the likes of which I just want you to know we need you. We need you to understand your mental health, and we need you to understand how necessary you are where you are, person. You're beautiful, okay? I'm not saying not to take your meds. If you are with a psychiatrist, you need to do the best you can to balance your life where it actually is, okay? Now let me go back to my story. This is part one, and I'm just going to read the poem. I've got to study it some. I don't understand some of the words. And that was another thing I was going to say. If the poetry breaks into another language, Patrick will tend to text with me and tell me what it's about. I just ignore those parts. I'm getting enough out of the English with T.S. Eliot, with Elizabeth Barrett Browning, with Robert Browning, with Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, with Robert Frost, you name it. I'm getting plenty out of the English. So, you know, and when I go back, I get more. So I'm excited for my journey in English. And I wasn't able to learn Spanish right now. I couldn't take the time. So it's an expectation on me from my high school years because I feel stupid in our society. I feel constantly stupid. So I know I'm not, but I feel that way. So just for all of you that feel stupid like me, because the person I had to apologize to, I had to defend that person to themselves because they were thinking they were stupid about something. It's like, absolutely not. I feel stupid all the time too. No, you're not stupid. You kick that out. And they listen to me because they know how bad it is, and they know that we are the solution. If any of my children have any question as to whether we are the solution, know that we are. We are the solution. And I'm speaking to anybody that is 35 and younger that understands about some things as you awake to what we have to deal with in our society, state to state. We are the solution. Now, if you are doing the Christian thing and pushing it on other people, you are the problem. You're part of the problem. You're not the whole problem, but you're part of the problem. And so I'm not talking to you, but you know what? Use your fucking free will. Get yourself into a society where we will help you be delivered from that society. And I've had lots of help over the years. Lots of help. Lots of people. I thank people all the time for inspiring me, for being there for me, for accepting me when I was making mistakes. Because I'm 50 years, quote unquote, Christian, and it took me forever to get here. And still love Christians and not treat them like monsters. You know, the Lord Himself does admonish us to turn the other cheek. And I always try, but you know, I'm kind of ashamed of this. I had to give myself space of time to hate people. And I had all kinds of accountability, but I'm ready to back off of it now. And if I hadn't have done that, I'd still have pain in my life. I metaphysical soul pain in my life. I would still have that. If I hadn't allowed myself to actually feel the hate that was welling up inside of me because I was controlled so much. Go fuck your excuses. Go fuck your idea of what protecting an actual adult woman is, because you don't know. You don't know what protecting us is. And you misuse us on a regular basis. So, I don't want to hear it right now. I am still in the position where it's like, I don't want to go back to having to have a season of hatred, because it's not good for me. I'm being selfish when I say that. It's not good for me, and it's not good for any of my future relationships. But I will tell you equally what is not good for my future relationships, and that is burying this pain from my past. It's not good for my future relationships. The big duh. That's true for anybody. The very reason that people like Donald Trump are actual criminals, monsters with, he's a baby monster with power that he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have had it to begin with, and he should have never gotten into the White House, ever. And he's not the only one I can say about that, but this one is the most obvious, bitches. Okay, so let's go back to my story. I think I've cleared the air here for myself. So I put my hands on the trees, and I had a moment with beautiful with the trees, but at Monkey's Nest, I wasn't able to read my poetry. I was waiting for something, and I didn't know what it was. So I just kept going. I had to do a little shopping at a store, and then I came back out and went to a second place and got an iced something. And sure enough, Curtis and I are working together to stay slower than we've ever stayed. We are having to learn not to put expectations on other people as a baby boomer and Gen X, and not to accept expectations on ourselves. Even our own expectations of ourselves have been too high for too long because of Christian cultishness. So I would say that our learning experiences, our mentoring each other, our loving each other in the middle of it is a pretty good experience at this point. We're getting there, but we both agreed we're just intentionally going slow with some things today. And so that part's good. And so I kept going slow instead of like going home and trying to do some chores, which is something I would actually do. Fuck the Lord's Day. I don't even fucking know what a day of rest looks like. And when I have a day of rest, it's because I'm exhausted. My brain has been thinking too much, and I have to stare into space, and I feel guilty about doing that. So, welcome to millions of our worlds, Gen X, millennials, some of y'all, and you sit there and watch TV. You ain't helping your brain. Neither am I. So I don't know how we're going to solve that. Because if you need to do that, don't be guilty about it. But I'm just saying, So anyway, so I had my conversation with the trees. I did some work, and enjoyable, pleasant, like reading and thinking about some things deep. But then when I got to the Starbucks that I go to occasionally, because my heart went like this. It went, I want a cozy spot to read my poem. And I had some despair because I know how to make a cozy spot. But I want the cozy spot to be a place that stays, and I don't have any of those. So I'm having to learn to make a place a cozy spot. And when I go back the next time to that particular place, it'll be easier and easier and easier. And that's even in my home. And y'all, it took me an hour of just being very careful with myself. But here's what happened: is I summon the living. They're not dead, but they're living. But they did go to the other side. And T.S. Eliot is very active with me, and I with he. It is like Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning. All three of them are very active with me, and I with them. There's a couple, three other poets, but I'm going to leave it at that right now, because the first time I can even show the artwork, it's at home right now, because Elizabeth Barrett Browning has a certain book, and it has a beautiful, that I write her things and my own things. It's a beautiful tree. Well, I had another experience, and it's my second one. And it just blows me away that I'm privileged to share this, because I talked to a tree and had got a poem out. Oh my goodness, that was months ago, and had no idea that I needed nature to touch me before this poetry would come out. I had no idea that I needed that, but I needed that. Well, I needed it again today. And then I wrote a poem. I wrote 2 poems talking to people on Twitter. That's now X. And then T.S. Eliot came in. I didn't see him in spirit, but he was there. And I had to pull the blind down at the Starbucks. I always appreciate their windows because you can pull the blind down. And I made my cozy spot. After I'd had some despair, I made my cozy spot. I was drinking my cold drink. And I cried. After I wrote my own poetry, I cried through that whole poem. And I didn't care who saw me. And I had made a connection to a tree across the street. And here's the thing, and I'm trying to try not to cry. It's a beautiful big tree in front of a public school. I think it may be elementary right there. So I went back to Garland, Texas. I astral projected, because we had those windows just like that. Beware, small A America. I'm about to tell you another testimony before I stop. Beware. Don't get giddy. So I astral projected to Garland, Texas, in my beautiful school, Bradfield Elementary in Garland, Texas. They're still there. And so I was praying for all of our children. Doesn't matter which kind of schools. I've been in all kinds of schools. So I'm praying for our children at the same time that I was writing a poem after allowing that person was not being safe, excuse me. After I was writing poetry myself, as I read T.S. Eliot's poem and invited him into my presence, is basically his spirit into my presence. And he's such a dear man. He's such a dear man. And it's just such a blessing to be able to share this well. There I was. The tree, the tall, big tree in front of this school. I astral projected probably the whole shop to Garland, Texas, but they don't know it. I'm a sorceress, so I don't talk about it when I'm doing this stuff. And I read the poem and I was crying through it. But it was the best tears, you know? Because we are kind of tears. And I just am so grateful in that place. It's heaven, paradise. And so I had a second time where I'm fellowshipping deeply with a poet. T.S. Eliot is the second one I've been privileged to say this with. And I write poetry, and then I read their poetry, and I can't even explain to you what it is, because I just want to stay in that room of heaven with them and not have to face what we face. But see, that's what a starfall is, my love life. Is because you close the door and you say, I'm coming back. See, I'm practicing, y'all. You can do this. I don't have any formal spiritual education like that. I am my education. That's why I do these things, is because I believe in your education of yourself. Love yourself means a lot of different deep things. And I was throwing runes and everything. It was just the best moment. But the hard part, the desperate part, was I had to be taken to a place with painful episodes of relationships to be satisfied and content to make a cozy place with just me. And I wasn't lonely, painfully lonely. And I've had that a few times, but you have to practice. I have to practice. We can get there. I don't know what your journey will be, but I'm sharing mine. And so I had a second incident of letting nature heal some pain in my life. The sun had even shone in my face. Last night the moon was shining and my sun's in my face as we came in from shopping a little late. And I was healing myself, but it was the earth that was healing me as I was making choices in my time out. And that's the first time I've ever entered a poem and cried through the whole thing. But they were the best kind of tears. And I texted Patrick and admitted it to him and said, I'm just going to need to read this poem. I'm not going to copy any of it. I am going to do a title page as page 3 of what I was actually privileged to write. And I will throw another rune or two to get the message out of the Thunder poem of T.S. Eliot's, is all I know right now. This is part 1. Now let me conclude. I had some dear people at the YMCA in Oak Hill, and one of them, we were talking about public school. And these are people that were going to public school probably in the 90s, the millennials. And this one was like, yeah, there was no air conditioning out. And he explained a prison cell. I don't know if it's that way where you are. But private schools a lot of times aren't any better as far as expectation on the kids. So we've got some work to do. I love you.